Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at @it'sjustino. And today we're going to be doing a bunch of things. A bunch of things because guess what? We have a game tomorrow. I woke up this morning and I saw people putting out predicted lineups for tomorrow and I thought, we're playing again? Oh yeah, Carabao Cup. So we're going to be playing against Sunderland tomorrow. So we have to do a little bit of a preview there. So essentially what today's show is going to be is a little bit of a post-match analysis, review, whatever on our game against Leeds where we battered them 4-1. I love that. You guys know my agenda against Leeds is strong and battering them always feels good. So we're going to talk about that. Um, talk about our young guns and there's obviously a good feel good factor around Arsenal right now, not only because we're playing well but because the young players are finally adding that end product. So we'll be talking about that, touching on Xhaka and Party and how they're that pivot and kind of our reintroduction back into those two being our starting central midfielders. How has that changed how the team has played over the last couple of games? Do we think they need to do more? Do we think that Sambi should come back in? I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. And we'll move into a little bit of a preview for Sunderland. Do we think Charlie Patino might get his first senior debut? That's been going around the Arsenal Twitter sphere today, and I think it would be nice to see some new faces, some younger guns, get a chance to play for the senior team. But we also know that we need to take care of business. And for me, the Carabao Cup is a very good opportunity for Arsenal to win a trophy. And obviously, top four and fighting for that position is the most important thing. But I personally feel like if for some reason Liverpool or Chelsea were to go out of that competition, the big teams are playing up against each other in this next round, that we'd have to do as much as we can to win that. I think trophies are important. And because we're outside of Europe, it would be nice to go really deep in a competition like the Carabao Cup and also the FA Cup in January when that starts. And I do want to touch on the COVID situation a little bit. There's been updates around the Premier League's decision to continue on with the Christmas Day fixtures or the Christmas fixtures, um, even though the COVID cases have been rising so much. Ethically, I do have to say that feels a little, it feels a little wrong to me. Just I feel like these footballers just I don't know how I don't know how to feel, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to continue on the games whenever there's so many COVID cases. But I understand why they want to continue things, continue to play games. The fixtures are starting to pile up, and I get that there's a lot of money involved. So we will touch on that and the Premier League's decision, and also talk about how that will affect Arsenal in our top four chances. And will it give us an advantage seeing that there are teams in and around us that have such congested schedules coming up because of their games in hand? How do we view that in terms of our chances of getting into the top four? And Josh Kroenke making the decision allegedly to exclude Aubameyang from the team. How do we feel about that? And if Aubameyang were to come back into this team, do we think that it would affect the team in a negative or positive way, or maybe not at all? So that is the agenda for today. Like I said, we're going to be talking about a lot. But what that basically means is that we're going to be spending a little bit more time with each other than we probably usually do, which that's never a bad thing in my mind. So there's about 50 of you guys watching right now. I really appreciate you guys coming, spending some time with me again. I know that there are plenty of places where you can be spending your time at the moment. It's the holiday season. You could be with your family, but you're spending your time with me, and I really appreciate it. And somebody else who I really appreciate a lot that will be co-hosting the show with me today. I'm going to go ahead and bring him in, and that's Souls. Hey, Souls, how are you?
I'm very well. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I cannot complain. Now, how much do you love my new mic? Do I sound any different? Please tell me I sound better. Better,
Yes,
worse,
you
same?
sound crispier, but then when someone made the, I can't remember who made the point. Yeah, I didn't clock until he actually made the point that your peas do pop. I did. I think when you're on like, or you listen to so many podcasts and so many different mics, you you become used to certain things, and like the pea, I've just becoming used to it, and it's just second nature. Like, oh yeah, it's gonna pop for everyone. So, but no, you sound good. Like a lot of people use that mic actually. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a gift for Christmas. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I am
nice.
going to be using it. I know it is nice, and it is the exact mic that I wanted. So, I love that. And I will figure out how to use it and use it to the best of my ability. This is, I think, the same mic that Elliot has from the Arsenal Vision podcast. So, he will be giving me a tutorial on this because I mean, his podcast sounds so good, so I want ours to sound quite similar.
Oh, there's so many softwares and like it's a lot of playing around with it until you get it right, and then every voice is
Yeah.
different. So yeah, you'll get there. But yeah, no, it sounds fine for now.
Yeah. So, well, we played and we won, and it was great. We did our player ratings, and I do have to say that I felt like some people thought that we were a little bit harsh, but I
Yeah,
think ultimately we both enjoyed the game and we were more than dominant. I just, I rewatched the game and I felt as though we were dominant. Of course, a lot of players had very good games, some going under the radar a little bit more than others because they didn't score goals or didn't get assists. But I do think there are some levels to go up in terms of just that in between time, those 20 to 30 minutes where we just kind of took the foot off the gas. I get that we have games coming up. I get that the game was pretty much dead and buried, but there are ways to take your foot off the gas without completely kind of just like falling apart. But it was nevertheless, it was a great game. But what I want to do first is I just want to kind of read out some statistics that I found. uh not really, not surprising, but when you see them, you just really think like, wow, this is some good shit. So 4-1 against Leeds, but most importantly, the Premier League stats that I want to drop today are Martin Odegaard, 4 goals, 1 assist this season so far. Bukayo Saka, 3 goals, 4 assists in the Premier League. Emile Smith Rowe, 7 goals and 2 assists. And I believe that only Mo Salah, Diego Jota, and Jamie Vardy have more open play goals than Emile Smith Rowe this season. And Gabriel Martinelli, who has just been reintroduced into the team just a short while ago, has 4 goals and 2 assists in the league so far. I mean, that is just end product, end product, end product. And not only just are the goals there, but I feel like we're enjoying the football a lot more. There's some attacking flair and fun from the young players. And Arteta has been criticized a lot for being kind of rigid and not letting the attackers kind of express themselves. Do you think that the players were being held back by Arteta in any way, or have they just developed and started to express themselves more naturally? I think this is an overall question where everybody has felt rigid and kind of like afraid to express themselves, but now players seem looser. Do you think that it's an Arteta thing, or do you think that these players are just developing and feeling more comfortable in their skin out there on the pitch for Arsenal? So now we're reaping the benefits of that.
actually, there was another stat that was amazing as well: 11 shots on target, which is the most in the Premier League season. And the thing is, it's a difficult one because it's a very small sample size to make a prediction, should we say, because that's all it's going to be. There's no factual evidence to back what we're about to say. But for me, I think it's the introduction of Xhaka, and then it's not Xhaka, but it's just more his player or his midfielder, and the way that he can deploy Xhaka is in many different ways. And I think what that allows Arteta to do with the attacking players is give them the freedom, and I think that's kind of the way I see it. But obviously, we'll see that when, let's say, Shaka's not in the team and let's say Lokonga and Party play, that will then give us the definitive answer whether we're right in this hypothesis or not. But for me, I think with the introduction of Xhaka, what it's allowed everyone in the team to do, it's allowed Tomiyasu to go forward. It's allowed Kieran Tierney, well, it's reintroduced Kieran Tierney into the team, and it's allowed him to have his attacking prowess as well and his influence in the attacking third as well. And I think that's kind of what the big difference is. Sometimes we underrate what Xhaka brings to the team or what he allows the team to do. His ability, we know he's very limited. We know he's not the person to take us forward, but he's the best we have right now, and that's just the way that I see things. And that allowed, like, obviously Martinelli to be, I don't know what the bulldog he is, like the pressing merchant he is, the sort of chaos he causes, it allows him to do that because he knows if anything, Tierney's behind him. If Tierney's not there, Xhaka will definitely be covering for him. And then if not, then you've got Gabriel, Xhaka, and White in the back three anyway. So it doesn't really matter. People then aren't so focused like, oh my God, I need to get back because Tavares is with me. So I need to get back now as well. I need to help out defensively. On the right-hand side, Tomiyasu is reliable. So that's covered as well. But then he can also overlap on the wing side there as well. And then you've got Odegaard introduced into this team as well, who's not only developed as well, we knew he could play on the right flank and we knew he can play in the right half spaces, but he's also developed into more of a natural 10 where he's influencing the middle of the park, but then also taking the ball on the left hand side as well. So I think there's a combination of all three things. There's a combination of the players allowing the system to flourish, and then there's introduction of players being just trained better and made to think differently in a ways of like how they're making their runs and how they're attacking spaces. And then the third thing for me is I just think it's starting to click. I think we're seeing what Lacazette brings to the table as well, because if you look at it, it's his urgency to keep that ball in play rather than allow the referee to blow for a penalty, for example, when the Xhaka, whether that's a foul or whether that's a penalty, that's anyone's opinion. It doesn't really matter. We got the goal. But that was Lacazette being switched on to the situation and then kind of touching the ball into Martinelli's path. But then it's Martinelli being switched on to knowing that that's happening. Rather than what we normally do is everyone starts shouting for a penalty. We just stayed switched on. Leeds kind of switched off a bit because they thought a decision was going to be made. And I think that's kind of what Lacazette brings. He's always switched on. And he is the traditional player that plays to the whistle. If the whistle isn't blown, he's still going to play. And if a decision is overturned, then we deal with it then. And I think that's a culture change as well. That's a mentality change that don't expect the ref to be on your side. Just do your thing and then wait for a decision to be made. And then whatever that decision is, we deal with it at that time. And I think that's the three things I think I can outline to how the system play. Because Aubameyang is a key, like you'll see it, he'll start complaining to the ref before the foul. And that's an issue. And look, like I said, it's a very small sample size, so it's hard for me to say this is the reason. But these are the three that I've drawn to. But I'm curious to know what you think.
Yeah, I think. Well, I want to highlight these really quick because Magzinho also said Saka is top 5 in key passes and top in big chances created in the Premier League. Odegaard has 17 key passes in 5. Martinelli is going to hit 10 non-penalty goals. ESR, we're really doing some interesting things here, and it's come so quickly. Really, in the last maybe 4 games or so, it's really been more evident that these things are coming about. Even maybe a little bit before that, because I thought attacking wise, I saw some things that I hadn't seen before when we played against, I think it was even like Man United, like Odegaard was doing things, but it was so sparse because we were playing so bad, ultimately, like all over the pitch. But I do want to say that, like, just going back to the what has changed and what I think is contributing to this attacking. I think that the thing is like when the system is what it is, the system is there to kind of make those players, their attributes, I think, work a lot better for like the sake of the team. So a system sometimes looks rigid and looks structured, but ultimately it's for the betterment of what you're trying to do. And then once you add more quality, then it doesn't look as structured, but you do need that individual quality in a system to make it look like it's working. If you look at what Pep does with City, that is a system that it's non-negotiable. Like, they do things because they have to, and it's the way that the system is built, because that's what's best for the team, for them to get repeatable results. But the reason why it looks so good and it doesn't look like ours is because they have more quality. And so when we had the attacking players out there and they weren't taking the man on and they were making the wrong decision in the final third and they were taking a second too long to pass the ball or to cross it, or things like that, that takes away from what we're trying to do. But now what you're saying is that these attacking players, in my opinion, are making they're doing more, so they're shooting more, they're getting into better positions more, and some of that has to do with what we built from the back. but also when they're getting in the final third, they're taking the right action. They're crossing when they're supposed to, they're shooting when they're supposed to, they have more composure. I think some of that is Martinelli because he's just an end product type of dude anyway, and he's always been really good at finishing. But you've seen that ESR has gotten better, Odegaard has gotten better, and Bukayo Saka has also gotten better. So the system was always going to be something where if we didn't have the quality, it wasn't going to work. But now that the quality is coming out, the system really works for us, and now we're creating more chances. And so I think it's some of that. But I like the point that you pointed out at Lacazette in particular, because I saw bits of this exciting attacking play from last season. I'm on record saying several times that I felt like with these younger players, we played better with Lacazette versus Aubameyang. West Brom away in the snow, the North London Derby, the second half of the West Ham game when Aubameyang came out, Leicester away when we beat them 3-1, Southampton when we beat them 3-0. Lacazette was central to a lot of what we did at that time. And it didn't matter whether it was Pepe or Saka or ESR that were playing in those wide positions. We looked better. We just looked better. And that's no shade to Aubameyang because we know that he's a great striker in his own right. But we're playing more to the strengths of Lacazette, so we're getting more out of him. And I just think what he does suits those young players in the way that they play a lot better. Lacazette is central to this attacking whatever resurgence that we've had. And since he's been in the team, we've just been so much better at creating chances. And what you said about him not giving up on the play, there was the goal that Saka scored. That was all Lacazette not giving up on the play. Saka drove into the box. It was kind of like a little jumble. It got to Xhaka. They pushed him over. Lacazette jumped on it. It went out to Saka, and Saka scored the goal. And I just think that's what you need. Like, you need a little bit more of that, like, pressure from the front. And because we don't always create the most chances, it's good that Lacazette has that get up and go. And I think he had the most pressures of any Arsenal player this season. It was like 30 pressures or something crazy against Leeds. And I think a lot of that has to do with just Lacazette giving a shit and playing for a new contract somewhere else or at Arsenal. And that's what you want, so that's kind of what I think. But
just to ask a question on that, do you know? I know it's going to sound like a weird question because it may not make sense, but it makes sense. Do you think we play better without a focal point? Because I don't see I know Lacazette's a focal point of some sort, but he's not at the same time, as in he's dropping a lot deeper. So we don't really have a striker, but we have what a traditional centre forward does, a bit more of a playmaking striker, in a sense of Firmino, in a sense. Like, he's not a striker, but he's not a focal point, but he is. And do you not think like that's what we need to be now? Because we've seen both sides. Like, we've seen what a pacey in behind striker can do, and we've also now seen what a Lacazette, like a playmaking Firmino-esque striker, can do. Now, do you think our focus should be looking more of a Lacazette striker, or do you think someone with the qualities that Aubameyang has, but just more well-rounded, would be the better option?
Personally, I think if we're going to continue to play with a double pivot, and a double pivot that does not really contribute that much to the attack, like Xhaka did get an assist in this game, but we know fundamentally he's more of a CDM or a deep line playmaker, and Thomas Partey tends to be a little bit more deep. That if we don't, get another attack-minded midfielder, then we need to play with two number 10s up front in that front four to keep the balance and make sure that we have enough creativity up there. If you were to go with what we have now and go with a different type of striker that's not really a number 10-ish, but is more of a focal point, I think we lose something. So I think in this system where we are right now, knowing that we only have a number 10 in behind the striker has to be a 10 as well, so that we get that balance right. Now, if we moved to more of a midfield 3, and we had 1 6 and 2 8s, then you could go ahead and get another run in behind striker, just a focal point. You wouldn't need a number 10, but you need it because both of your pivots that are sitting deep are more defensive. So for me, I think that's what you have to do unless we decide to switch things around completely. But I think right now I would be looking at a Lacazette plus, a better Lacazette a younger Lacazette that can play for 90 minutes. But I think right now, as long as he's playing for a new contract somewhere, he'll be good to go and we're in a good position. But yeah, there's about 100 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe on the channel. Solo says, Jess, we keep disagreeing on this. Party in the sixth is the sixth in this lineup. Go look at the games we've been winning. Xhaka has been the more forward out of the both of them. Well, this is a good segue into the midfield conversation. And I don't think we're necessarily disagreeing on this, because I think on this channel we've been pretty firm on saying that as long as Jack is here, Thomas Partey will always be the deeper of the two, or he'll be more reserved than he probably should need to be, because he needs to stay a little bit more back, because Xhaka can't be trusted alone in the midfield by himself. So I do think that they take turns a little bit more than people think. But I do agree with you that Thomas Partey plays more of a six, even though that's not, for me, his best position. So yeah, but in terms of Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka, I just wanted to kind of chit chat about that for a second. So let me just go through Thomas Partey and Xhaka's kind of overall games against Leeds. Let me just pull this up really quick. I don't know why it went away. Like, I literally just clicked on this and now it's Xhaka actually had a really good game against Leeds, to be fair. So obviously he played the 90 minutes. He got an assist, 70 touches, 91% pass completion, 2 key passes, one long ball, 1 chances created. He won 6 of his 8 ground duels, 1 of his 2 aerial duels. He lost possession 9 times and he got dribbled past only 1 time, and 1 block, 1 interception, and 5 tackles. Whereas Thomas Partey, his was a little bit different. And this is interesting because a lot of people pull up these statistics and then try to tell me that this is the story of the game without any context. But Thomas played the 90 minutes, had 91% pass completion. He had 2 long balls that were successful, 2 shots on target. We know that he shot the ball early in the game. Didn't really get a lot of pepper on it. I thought he should have been able to finish that one. He won 4 out of the 6 ground duels that he had, 4 possession loss, 1 clearance, 1 interception, 2 tackles, and 2 was dribbled past twice. And when I listened to kind of people's analysis of the game, they thought that Xhaka was the better. They thought he was the better of the two. And so I guess my question kind of to you is, should Partey be the better of the two midfielders, and is Partey's more reserved role an issue because of how much we paid for him? Because I'm often hearing like, well, Xhaka, if he's better than Thomas Partey, then we've made a mistake. But I kind of think they balance each other out. And depending on who plays deeper, the person that's doing more of the risky passing and going forward tends to look like the better of the two. Kind of like when Sambi was doing that role and Thomas was staying more back. But where do you kind of sit on the, should Partey be better than Xhaka because of how much we paid for him?
I've kind of become more, I don't really care how much a player costs anymore, because I don't think any players truly met their valuation, even if you're looking at, unless you get like a steal like Ronaldo for £25 million. That's the only one where I'd say, okay, you know what, you underpaid for a player. But traditionally, no players really cost how much they should. So it's a harsh thing. But for me, it's more, you expect more from Partey. I think it's more of an expectation thing. You expect him to be this driving force in midfield. Maybe we've overhyped him as a fan base. Because I know a lot of people don't necessarily watch La Liga or aren't the biggest fans of La Liga, so they might not watch Atletico, because to be honest with you, they're not the most entertaining team, so I don't blame people for not watching them week in, week out. But even when you look at it, Thomas Partey is always second to the partner. Like, the partner's always the one who's it's always going to get more rankings than Thomas Partey. But I expect him to be a bit more risky. I expect him to be a bit more involved in transition and actually dictate transitions more. And I feel like at the moment, it's the person who plays next to Partey is doing that, which is the disappointment. Now, Why that is, I have no idea. I don't know whether it's a shot in confidence, because when you look at him against West Ham, it's what I want to see Partey doing. Like, I want him to be getting that ball and trying to drive on the midfield, trying to take people on, taking people out of the game. And you're seeing it that now Ben White's having to do that a lot more than he probably should, because Partey isn't doing it. And it can start to have a knock-on effect on the team. Obviously, we know Granit Xhaka's not that player, but he's having to do it. So it's a tough one to answer, but I do agree. I think they balance each other out at the moment. And the thing is, the question always comes to whether we get a partner for Partey, and will that improve things? I think on a quality sense, obviously Xhaka's not the greatest. So those 20 minutes that we were speaking about, when we can get a foothold of the game, and there's better ways of sort of turning the gas off on games, does improve. Because if you have, let's say, a Basuma in that situation, if you have even an Awar in them situation, they hold the ball better, and they might not go for the risky passes, but kind of play it sideways, they'll play it backwards, etc., and just trying to control the narrative of the game. But it's a tough one, because we've seen in sort of flashes what Partey can bring to this. And I don't know, because the issue is, we can keep saying adaptation. We can keep saying that he needs to adapt to the league and the pace of the league. He has had injuries, so we'll take that into consideration and kind of give him the first season. But then it's like he has been here for a season. Yes, it was on and off, so it's a bit difficult to fully adapt. I don't know. I think this is a big season for Partey to change the narrative on himself. And I think we've got to become a club that's not sentimental, that's not going to look at it's Thomas Partey, give him time. Because we have to also take into consideration he's 28 and I think 29 at the end of the season. So he's not a young buck. He's not 24 where you're like, okay, you know what, he's got time. He's not a Gabriel or a Ben White where you can sit there and go, okay, he's young and it takes a bit longer for them. Because if we're being truthful to ourselves, everyone that's played next to Partey, we've all agreed, has looked better than Thomas Partey. And that, for me, shouldn't be the case. And maybe with time, but at the end of the day, things at the moment are working. So I don't want to sit here and, because it's not, Partey's not been at fault for anything. It's not like his fault that we nearly conceded. It's not been his fault that Ben White gave a penalty away. It's not been his fault that we lost to United. It's not nothing has really been his fault either. So you also need to look at that side of things and say that, you know what, he's doing his job under the radar. And maybe it's because the thing is, it's working. Whatever Partey's doing is clearly working, because Shaq has upped it a level. He's now getting the assist. So we can sit here and be like very nitpicky and blame Partey for a lot of things, or he should be better. But if we're winning 4-1 against Leeds, if we're beating West Ham 2-0 and we're beating Southampton 3-0, the only times it's like Everton, for example, I want you to step up in them games and take the game by the scruff of his neck and make something happen. But other than that, I'm quite okay as long as someone's doing the job and he's not messing it up. Like Xhaka would get a red card, for example, and mess it up for Partey. As long as he's not doing
Yeah.
something like that, I don't really have a big issue, and I can allow him the time. That's the way I'm
Yeah.
seeing it at the minute.
I think there's two sides of this here, where Sean is making an interesting point that in this team, Thomas Partey is our best number 6, and Partey is doing the best for this team and not for himself. And so if he's being asked to play in the 6 role and play the more reserved role in front of the defense, that position has never really been a position where people tend to look at it and say that player is it tends to be the case where you don't really know what you have until it's gone. And when Gilberto played in that number 6 role, nobody really realized how much work he was truly doing until he was gone. And that's usually the case with most CDMs. Most people that play deepest, that do that role, it's not glamorous, so can we really fault him for playing in an unglamorous position where his job really isn't to be the shining star, but to pass it to somebody else to do, the stuff more progressively? But then there's the other side of the coin where I think where you can ding him a little bit, and that's just the errant passes, the touches, the kind of going missing sometimes. We have to be honest about that some of his touches just haven't been on point, some of the errant passes where it just seems like he's not concentrating. And I think it says a lot that he said himself that he's been a 4 out of 10. So he knows he hasn't been great. But I think you have to recognize that if somebody's being asked to play as the deepest midfielder, that their job is not to gallop all the way through the entire team and shoot a screamer into the top bins. Their job literally is to recover the ball and circulate it to the other players. So if you're thinking that in that role, he's going to be doing it all, he's probably not. But the touches definitely need to be better. He needs to show up in big games. I would expect him to be not getting bypassed in midfield. I see that he still looks a little bit shy in midfield to make the tackles. I'm not sure if he's just afraid to get a card or something, but it's going to be interesting to see how he grows a little bit more. But there's definitely some work to be done on his side, but then also some expectation setting on our part as well, based on where he's playing. Now, straight up, do you think Granit Xhaka should have been sent off for his tackle in this game? I think it's interesting because some people don't think he should have, but for me, it's a straight red, and I think we were lucky to get away from it, get away with it.
I've got a very bizarre answer for this because, yes, by the letter of the law, yes. But when you're playing football, it happens. Like, and I know that's like, oh yeah, I'm an Arsenal fan, that's why I'm saying it. But no, I do think by the letter of the law, yes, that's a red card because it is a dangerous tackle. But in the same breath, I'm like, well, what do you want him to do with his foot once he tries? Because he did get the ball. That's the thing. He made contact with the ball. It was just a follow through that obviously landed on it. And I think sometimes when you're in the moment or when you're playing with momentum, especially, it's not the easiest thing to stop your foot from doing something that you don't want it to do, especially when you've gone in for a tackle. I'm 100%. I can put my hands on heart and say I've probably made a tackle like that in playing football. So it's a red card. Let's not beat around the bush on that one. It's a red card, but I would personally say it's more of a yellow card. Like in a situation where you're playing for the ball, you did get the ball, and obviously it's. But then I'm like, I look at other incidences and I'm like, well, people have gotten away with a lot less than that. Like that is bad, but I've seen people get away with it. So I just want a consistency, but I see it both ways. I see it as a yellow card, but I can see why it could be a red card as well. But I've also seen players being sent off for less, and I've seen players not be sent off for more. So it's a bit of the Premier League's kind of messed this up because if you're going by like what we've seen in the Premier League, it's probably a yellow card if you're looking at the overall scale of like tackles. And then obviously the following day, Kane should have got a red card, and we didn't, and that would have been a lot worse than what Xhaka did. And then there's also incidents against us, for example, that could have been, for example, I equate it to, was it Gelhart or I can't remember who did it on Tomiyasu, for example.
Yeah.
I see them the same. I see them as being the same situation. I think both are yellow cards, but if both got red cards, I would have been like, fair enough. I can see why they're red cards. But yellow, if I was refereeing, that's a yellow.
Yeah, for me it's a straight red, and it was totally unnecessary in my opinion. And I thought Kane's tackle on Robertson was a red. I thought Robertson's swipe on Emerson was a red, and I thought Granit Xhaka's tackle on whoever the hell that was, Rafinha, was a red. I think the consistency, there's a lack of consistency. Let's just say it that way. And that's just all I really want to see. And I know that it's like, as an Arsenal fan, of course, I'm like, we got away with one. I saw a Leeds fan the other day talking about the game, saying that it was top four bias that Xhaka didn't get that red card. And I just thought to myself, do we have top four bias again? I love that. Did we ever have top four bias? Like, that's such a strange way. But I guess if you are a team that's not one of the top teams, you would probably think that it was just biased towards us. I don't know how we got away with no card whatsoever. I thought Andre Mariner had a very suspect game. And as an Arsenal fan, I'm happy we got away with it. But I guess the most important thing for me to kind of open up this conversation a little bit more is that how can Xhaka be considered a leader when in moments where we are under pressure, not even under any pressure at all, he can lose his head so easily. Shouldn't a leader be the calm head in the group? I mean, we're up 3-0. We just came out of the tunnel for the second half, and he's picking fights with the Leeds players. I mean, isn't it kind of like, in one hand, we're saying he's a leader, an experienced head, but when we need him to keep a cool head, he's about to get a red card. I mean, had he had gotten that red card, how bad would that have looked? How much pressure would he have put us under? We know without him over the last couple of weeks, it's been really difficult. So where do you kind of sit on the Xhaka is a leader, but in moments where he needs to be a leader, he's not really showing it.
Yeah, he's a bizarre study because for me, he's got every attribute to be a leader, bar that one quality, and that one quality is the fact that he's rash. And I think it's just he's overly passionate. I think that's kind of the way I put it with Xhaka because he overfights, he overcompensates, and that's an issue. He just needs to because the thing is, if he tones that down a bit, that side of his game down, he is like without a question the perfect leader for any team. But it's just the fact that I think he takes it too seriously, and that's sometimes what makes a bad leader. So there's because the thing is, if we look at the way he kind of allows the team to play for the 90 minutes without really dropping their levels, for example, he doesn't really look at who the player that he's screaming at, whether you're Tierney, to whether you're Saka, whether you're Odegaard, whether you're Martinelli. Like he won't care if you're not doing your job or if you're not doing what's required for the team. He will make it known to you. Like for example, the turning point for me was when I think it was against West Ham where he told Tierney to bomb on forward and attack the space forward. And Tierney was just stood there and he was like, and then after he's passed at him and the phase kind of died down, he went over to him and goes, "What the hell was that?" And that's to me why I like him as a leader. But then, yes, of course, you have to look at the overall picture and say, well, he's got that side to him. So maybe he's a captain that's not a captain. So you've got Gabriel with the armband, but you can have him just be a lead. The same way I see Taney. I think Taney doesn't need the armband to be the captain. And I don't know, because I wouldn't give it him personally. I don't think. I think after stripping him, you can't really give a player that you've stripped of the captaincy this big. And until he does, it's the same with Taney. Until Taney can't prove he's fit, I don't think he should get it. Same way until Xhaka can prove he's no longer rash and he can be a bit more mature in games and be that leader that we need him to be, then yeah, he can get it then. But at the moment, both of them have got their flaws. So it's a difficult one. I think
Mhm.
Lacazette's probably the perfect one because he's got a combination of all of that. He does love the club. He's passionate about it, and he's got that sort of leadership that he allows the players to play at a level that Xhaka does. So I think he's an annoying one because if he didn't have the rash side of him, to me, he's the perfect captain. But you have to look at the flaws, and that's a big one because when we've needed him, he's let us down. So that
Yeah.
to me, you can't be captain, but you can be a leader within the group, but just not as a captain.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult argument to make because I think he gives off alpha male vibes and
Yeah,
I'm very confident in myself vibes. I yell and shout and I'm always available and all of that. But for me, if you don't have that aspect of being able to lead the team when we're under pressure, make the right decisions, be the model of what you're supposed to be doing at that moment in a game, then I just feel like the argument of him being a leader for Arsenal is quite weak. And I think some of his leadership ability is left with Switzerland. I think he's completely different with them than he is with us. And he's a captain for them and a leader for them, but he's definitely not one for Arsenal in my mind. I think he gives off those vibes without there actually being anything there. And so when he did that, and we were under zero pressure whatsoever. We're up 3-0 and he's picking fights with the Leeds players. It reminded me again that he's pretty much always it doesn't even have to be anything happening. He will be in a position to potentially get sent off, which is another reminder that he also is somebody that probably needs to be moved on sooner rather than later. Um it always goes back to that for me. That there's always these little moments with Granit where I'm thinking, although I do think he's a good player and I do think he has value within the squad because we don't have anything else, we have to move on from him because he can't even be counted upon for me as an experienced leader in the team. So yeah, it is what it is. But we can kind of move on from that. But that there was a really good game. I think ultimately, just to wrap it up in a bow, that 4-1 against a team that's decimated by injuries um, is not something that you could look at and really sit there and be like, oh, well, this makes us the best team in the world, but we're taking care of the business that needs to be taken care of. These are games that we probably wouldn't have won like it maybe a year or so ago. We didn't even beat Leeds. We drew them away from home last
No,
season
no,
in a
yeah.
very tough time. Pepe gets sent off, and today we battered them, and that's what we need to be doing. We need to be beating Southampton at home 3-0. We need to be beating West Ham at home 2-0. We need to be beating Leeds away from home 4-1. Not let them in the game. You know, it's just so good. Do you want to touch on very quickly the penalty and Ramsdale and White seemingly celebrating it, but like what was going on there? And like even more so, just Ramsdale in general. I mean, that was kind of funny after the fact that he had kind of like dapped up White after he made that silly tackle, but him just the Leeds fans just going after him and him just dancing around and running around from the guy is crazy, isn't he? I mean, that he's mental, isn't he? I mean, you want to just touch on that a little bit? The penalty, Ramsdale goading the Leeds fans, and just give me your general wrap up of the Leeds match.
Oh, that was a brilliant moment. The way I see it is they didn't think it was a penalty. I think they just, you know what it is with like the likes of Ben White, Gabriel, even Ramsdale, even Tomiyasu, to be honest, is that they think that's a tackle. So they celebrate. They are defenders that celebrate tackles like goals, and I love that, by the way, because it just shows they love their job. Yes, they got it wrong this time and kind of made fools of themselves because it was a penalty, but I can't blame them for being passionate about, wanting to defend, which is something we've not seen in a while, and it's not just being passionate about your job, but being good at it as well. And the way that Ramsdale riles up rivals, and especially in the stadium, you got to love it because you know what? There's certain positions on the pitch you just have to be a cocky son of a gun, like you just do, and that's a goalkeeper because when you're playing on the other side where the away fans are behind you, you just need that confidence. You need to be able to play the crowd. You need to be able to change that narrative and rile them up. And I think he's one of those that plays under the pressure and under the lights. He absolutely thrives under it. And yeah, I don't know. I seen it differently. Maybe if I looked at it back a few times, I might have been like, actually, no, the penalty was given before they started celebrating. So I don't know what. But you gotta love it. You've got to love the confidence. You gotta love the cockiness, and we've not had that in a while. And it's not cockiness in terms of they're not humble. They're humble when they need to be, but they are the perfect mentality to breed a winning side in terms of we've got this. And that's what you've got to do when you're in the game. You've got to have the most self belief, especially when you're trying to be, a top four side, a title winning side, etc. in the future. These are the players that you're going to look to when the tough gets going. And you know what, man, Ramsdale, if he had come like 4 years ago, captain today, but it's just a bit too early. But I love it, by the I absolutely adore Ramsdale and Ben White because I love the two. Yeah, I had my reservations with Ramsdale. I did say that like I've not seen enough. Like I know people are talking about his distribution, etc. And I was like, I've not seen it because I've not seen Sheffield really play out the back the way we do. So I need to see that first. But in terms of shot stopping, yeah, he's had the best statistics for the past like 3 seasons. So brilliant, absolutely amazing. Everything we've been missing in this team, and that's how I'd sum it up. It's just been brilliant.
I love it. There's about 130 of you guys watching right now. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And now we're just going to kind of move on to Sunderland, which again, I was shocked to see predicted lineups for a game tomorrow. I was like, what's going on? We play
Yeah, but
again?
no one cared
Oh,
about the Leeds game.
yeah, exactly. I mean, we play against Sunderland. What are they? Are they League One or League Two?
Yes. I think
League
they're
One.
League One, aren't they now? Or did they get
League One.
relegated again? Because
I
I know
don't
they had a
know.
double relegation, but I don't know what they done last season.
Let me make sure I get this right, so I'm not out here being rude. But Sunderland is League One, so
League
they're a
One, yeah.
League One. They're a League One team, and the Carabao Cup, I think, is a good opportunity for a trophy. I know we kind of said earlier in the season that we really wanted to focus in this Christmas period, um, Christmas January period, on trying to solidify ourselves in the top four and stay in that race. But for me, one of my little things for Arteta, because we're not in Europe, is he needs to go really deep in both the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, and I would expect us to go to a semi or a final for at least one of those. And this is a good opportunity. Man United's already out. Man City's already out. I think out of the big teams that are still left, it's Chelsea and Liverpool, and if you want to count that little club over there, the Cock and Ball, yeah, the little team over there, they're in it as well. And Brentford and West Ham are still there. So if for some reason, because we know that Klopp doesn't really take this this competition very seriously, he could put kids out there against who are they playing? I forget who they're playing, but he may
Who's
put kids against
Liverpool are playing Leicester.
Leicester, exactly. So he may put kids out there, and then Chelsea
Frankie
are
Moore
in
even.
an interesting position as well. I just think if either of those teams go out, we have to go for it. Because really, if they get to the final, they're going to put out their best teams and it'll be really difficult. But if they don't get through, I would love to win the Carabao Cup. I want to go far in one of these domestic trophy competitions. I personally feel like they're important. And there's been over the years this weird thing with fans where it's not important. All that matters is getting into the top four. And at the end of the day, qualifying for top four a bunch of times and not getting any trophies is bullshit. You have to win trophies, and we see how much of a boost that gave Arteta at the beginning of his career at Arsenal. And this is, I think, today is the anniversary of his second year in charge at Arsenal. By the way,
Oh yeah,
so
mad, yeah.
yeah,
I forgot.
so
Yeah, because
it's
it's been so like weird because it didn't start for like until January.
exactly. So it's important, and we're playing against Sunderland. We got by far the easiest draw here,
Mm.
and I would expect us to destroy them. But we're going to be playing probably a very changed side. I'd be very surprised if Arteta risked some of our better players against Sunderland. And what I've noticed over, the last couple of years or so is that when we play our fringe players, it's different than playing the kids, because kids are always fighting to make a name for themselves. It's like it's my first time out here, my debut, or I'm fighting to get playing time. When you play the fringy guys, I feel like sometimes they take a while to get going. They lack that continuity and that connection, and team games that should be really simple end up being really close, 2-0s or whatever that they shouldn't be. How do you kind of view this game? Do you think that it's going to be a super change side? Would you maybe keep a starter or two in there to make sure that we finish off the game? Or do you think change it all, don't risk anybody? And how important is the Carabao Cup to you in terms of, is this something that we should be trying to get, or focus on top four, tunnel vision, don't don't risk anything for this Carabao Cup?
I still want to win everything. Like that's just the way I am as a fan. I want to win the Carabao Cup, I want to win the FA Cup, and I want to win the Premier League. But obviously, we know two of them are possible. One of them we're not there yet. But yeah, no, we need to win a cup. The issue is like obviously the longer we go without winning one, it kind of becomes something you can't do. Like say for example, if he doesn't win it, that's 2 years on the bounce that we haven't won a cup. We haven't been able to do anything. Even if it's a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup, it's important for team morale, and it also gives you that inkling that actually there is and the players, it gives them a boost to say, you know what, actually we are good enough. And for me, look, our fringe players, yes, as sort of bad as they are as individuals when they play with the first team, they have done well when given the opportunity. Like even if you look at Leeds, for example, we kind of had a rotated 11 and we beat them 2-0 if I'm not mistaken. And then obviously Wimbledon were meant to beat anyway, but we rotated that side and they comfortably beat Wimbledon as well, which no one got to watch unless you're in China or at the stadium, unless you're watching those Twitter streams, that's the only way you got to watch it. So I don't know how those games played out. So I can't even judge like whether we were good or not. But Sunderland, look, the League One. I think they're on top of League One or like near the top, if I'm not mistaken.
Third.
And the third, yeah. And I expect even if Pepe, Nketiah, Balogun are playing up front, I'm expecting them to win. The only first teamer that I suppose will play that's likely to play is probably Ramsdale because Leno's injured. He's got a knock to his groin still. So I don't know whether he's fully back or
You don't
not.
think we'll play Arthur Akwanko? You don't think?
But they were no disrespect. Obviously, I don't like disrespecting our youngsters, but they were a bit shocking in preseason. I don't know whether he'd take that big of a risk in a game that's this important. But I expect to see somewhat of a rotated side. I think there's certain players I can see him play, but there's certain players I need a rest because not only have they played the last 4 games, but they played basically the entire season. So there are some, but I'm guessing we could do 11 rather than me spoiling who I want to play and who I think is going to play. Because even Rekic is one of them. Because I know you said Patino, but Rekic has also been very touted to be highly in contention to start in this game.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I had forgotten that Leno had gotten injured, so I'm not
I don't
sure
know if he's
about
back,
his.
but he's been injured for a long time.
But I did see him in training photos.
So maybe he's back. I don't know because he wasn't in the team for the last few games.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a little bit, and then you have the players that are in and out of the COVID situation as well. Like I've seen a lot of predicted lineups that had Sambi in it. I'm not sure if he's back from COVID. Pablo Marie, I'm not sure if he's back from COVID. So, and when players come
They
back
can't
from
be because it's
COVID, they're
10. I think
just
that the rule's
it's
10 days
10
now.
days.
I
Yeah.
think so. I think
So,
it's gone back to 10 days or at least 7 at the
yeah.
bare minimum. So I don't think they'll be back.
Oh, it would be a shame if we had to play Ramsdale, but I'm going to put Leno there just in hope that maybe he's ready to go.
Yeah, because obviously
Um,
we've not had any news on that. But yeah, I don't know. 'Cause, I mean, obviously, I'd want Leno to play if he's fit. If not, then
right,
obviously
right, right,
go
right.
with Ramsdale. Ooh, right
Okay.
back's a difficult one.
I mean, it's difficult because there's like no good options. But
uh, ooh,
so at right back, I mean, it depends on what you want to do at center back because basically what you have available to you is Chambers and Holding as your center back options because said Kolasinac is injured and Pablo Marie had COVID. So it kind of doesn't give you the opportunity to play Chambers at right back. So you kind of have to go with Cedric unless you decided to risk somebody like White and play him in this game. But
I'm
I
doing
feel like
another
that's too
basic.
much of a risk.
I'm
What do you
going. I'm
think?
going Chambers, Rekic, Holding, and Tavares as my backline. That's what I would do. Just
I
because
don't know if I'd start the kid. I don't know if I'd start the kid. I
no,
feel
but
like it'd
he's
be
got Holding who's senior enough to be able
maybe
to
wrap
take
up
the
the
game.
game first. See, here's my thing is that like too many. I mean, it's already going to be so many changes, but you throw a kid back there. I feel like I get what you're saying, but could he not come in once the game is wrapped up? Like, could he not come in for the last 30 or so?
But do I don't know. I mean, Ben. I don't know because it's like Ben White doesn't well, touch wood actually before I say anything.
Well, we
But
don't. I'm not
yeah,
saying play
he's
Ben
not
White.
looking tired.
I'm saying play Cedric
I don't
Chambers and
know.
Holding and
I
Tavares.
I don't like Cedric. Can we split
I know
Tavares? I really
we
don't want to
don't
play.
like Cedric,
All
but
right, yeah. Do
I
you know what?
don't.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll play Cedric. I have to put my agendas
We
aside a
know
little bit.
it's Cedric, isn't it? Like
Cedric, you better have a good
Chambers.
game, man. I swear, that I'm coming to the Emirates and just taking
These
you off the
boys
field.
haven't touched the field in so long. It's gonna be these
Oh
games
yeah.
seem like they're
Oh,
gonna be
actually,
insane.
do you know what the biggest thing about this game is? We're getting to see Rob Holding with that lush of hair.
Oh yeah, it's so nice. It's so
There's a
nice.
debut. There's a debut for Rob Holding because this is a new man.
You can tell he's feeling good about himself as well. I mean, this is pretty much what I would expect to see. And then I know they've been talking about Omar Rekich, somebody that they also want to send out on loan soon. So they might want to play him in this game to show, like, to get him some minutes so people can see him and get him out on a loan. But I would have, for me, I'd rather us nail the game down and then start talking about senior debuts after that. We're just not strong enough throughout the rest of the team for me to trust holding Rekich's hand, as well as trying to keep, like, I know that Sunderland in League One, but I've seen us struggle against these teams with these
Oh
fringe
yeah.
players before, so we really have to be careful. But this is kind of what I would go for. And then because Sambi is not, I don't think he'll be back from COVID. I think you kind of have to go with the obvious choices, which would be Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Mohamed El Neni. Yay. That sounds so fun. Um, and then I think Smith Rowe, that
He's
could
not
be
really played a
your,
lot.
yeah, he hasn't played a lot, and let's give him a chance to stat pad a little bit and stretch his legs out and get some minutes. Are you okay with putting Smith Rowe at the 10?
Yeah, I was gonna say he's probably the only so-called first team player that I would definitely put in, because he's not played the last two. He's been on the bench for the last two. You can play him, and there's still 5 days? Yeah, 5 days until we play Norwich, and it is Norwich, so it's not a big deal because he's not played a lot. So yeah, no, I'd go Smith around. I think the front three kind of what I is hope I
It
want to see.
feels like it picks itself. You never really know with Arteta. I've seen
Oh no,
Martinelli in
yeah,
some predicted lineups. I just don't think it's worth it. I think put him in against Norwich. Play the team that we've been playing against Norwich, and go with some guys that haven't played a lot. I'd play Nketiah, because we're just all dying to see Nketiah play. Balogun, because he's just
I would have swapped Nketiah and Balogun around, but I don't. It don't matter. Don't
playing
really.
Nketiah off of the left.
Yeah, because that's what he's been doing. He's been playing on the wing more than he does up front. Oh, that's better. That's much better. Have two Balagans. No, but I don't know
Nketiah.
why, but he's been deployed as a winger. Because remember, even in preseason when we beat, was it Watford 4-0, and Nketiah got 2 goals playing off of the wing, which was weird, but it was a good
Yeah,
game.
I mean, that works. Is there somebody that could play off of the right-hand side that can play right wing? Do you have any idea if there's
Pe-
somebody there?
Pepe. I don't know if your agendas are getting in the way. Yeah,
I'm
all
just
right.
kidding.
Yeah, agendas and agenda settings.
So,
Um, no,
Pepe.
I think he should play because we know. Obviously, we're getting onto that, but we know Aubameyang's not in this one, so but he ain't coming back until after AFCON. So yeah, no, I think that's because I mean, look at that team. I'm sorry if we can't get the job done with that, I'd be very concerned. Um, because the thing is, Xhaka's come back from a long injury, so I don't really want to put him in there. And I just think give Party a rest because I don't know what's going on with him. Maybe give him this game and boost his confidence. I really don't know which way around it is with
I
Party at the
think
moment.
I think Party could do that against Norwich. I
I
think
hope so.
that the last thing you want to do
Is
is
injury.
risk, because let me tell you something. That's the Sunderland manager was bumping his gums when they got through on penalties against whoever the hell they played in the last round, and said that he wanted to play either Arsenal or Spurs. And I just was like,
Do you
you're
know, after he said
so
that, I said,
dumb.
let's absolutely, I want to murder them. I want to put the, because the thing is, yeah, they're already done. They're a dusted club that's in League One, that's just getting relegated every year. I want to destroy them after that. And I'll be like, are you sure you still want Arsenal?
And I was just like, I feel like I would not be surprised if this team was down for a dirty tackle or two, and I just don't want to risk any of our main players just in case because that's the only way that they'll beat us, right? Is if they put in dirty tackles and get really physical and stuff like that. And even though I don't think we're that old team that shirks away from the physical battle, I just wouldn't want to risk it. But when I look at this team, I see a team that's fully capable of beating Sunderland at home, in this Carabao Cup round. I guess what we just have to keep in mind is that don't be surprised if they take a minute to get going because they haven't played a lot. They haven't played with each other, so it's one of those. But I fully would expect us to win this game. But you spoke about Omar Rekich. somebody that might play and get some minutes. But what about Charlie Patino? It's been kind of floated around, that Charlie Patino might get his debut. And I know we're excited to potentially see Balogun. There's been tons of content about Balogun, so even he tweeted like stuff about himself as well. Do you think that Charlie Patino, like, isn't this the type of games that you want to see these young players come in and show what they have? I mean, there's been so much talk about him. Would you like to see him be given a couple of minutes if we're 3-0 up or something against Sunderland?
I'm in two minds because I'd love to see Patino play, but then at the same time, when I look at him, I'm like, I don't know because you, the thing with lower league sides is they're a lot rougher, and they're not professionally rough. They're just rough for the sake of being rough. Like whereas in the Premier League, yeah, you'll get a strong tackle here and there, but it's very calculated in the way they do it. So you don't see as many injuries or bad injuries against top quality teams. But whereas with for example, what Stoke did to Ramsey, for example, these are because they're low level oppositions that play dirty football, and that's what worries me when I look at Patino. I'm like, you're not physically there yet. Whereas when I look, because there's a different question to Balogun, because Balogun physically is ready to play first team football, but he's just not, because the opportunities aren't there. He's not developed enough to play first team football, like in terms of just him as a player, not him physically. So I don't know. I think I'd give him a run out for like 30 minutes or something at the near the end of the game once we've kind of wrapped it up. But to start him, I'm a bit worried because it's just more of the physical battle. We need to see the approach Sunderland take. Like you said, they could come at us very dirty and come at us gun ho, like putting those dirty tackles in. And I just don't know whether he's physically developed enough to be able to take them on. And maybe he's a year away from that. Whereas with Rekic, for example, he's physically ready for first team football. We're looking to loan him out. Balogun's ready for it. Salahuddin, for example, that's another name that's being touted around that people want to see. It's not really in contention at the minute, but people want to see him play. He's another player that for me looks physically ready to be loaned out or to play first team football. So that's my
Well, I
only
don't think
concern.
I'm not
But yeah,
thinking about starting him. Just come in at some point. I remember people wanted to see him against
is
Wimbledon, and
it
he
is it
didn't come
five?
in.
If it, is it five subs on, or is it still three for? Because some I know, or is it no? It's five, isn't it? For the Carabao Cup, I'm sure, or
Mhm.
am I mistaken?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think I would expect him to be on the bench. We're at
Because if it's
home.
five subs, I see him coming on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, get Glenn, thank you so much for stopping by. Says, would you have a strong bench or under 23s? How confident are you? Is
I'd mix it.
Saka and
Yeah.
Lacazette on the bench, ready to come on if things go awry? Or do you have a team full of Salah Deans and Charlie Patinos and those guys on the bench? How confident are you?
Not that confident. I mean, I'd have a few. I'd mix it because look, I know we need to be cocky in games like this, and we need to be like we're Arsenal. We should be battering them regardless of who we put out there. But you still look, we still need just a reassurance, to on because you know what it does. It's a mental thing. Because if you say, for example, you've got Martinelli and Lacazette, just the two, let's say, what that does, it strikes fear in Sunderland that at any point we could be playing Martinelli, at any point we could be playing Lacazette, or any point we could be playing Saka. And it's just a mental thing that they're always on edge because they're like, oh, they could make this change. So we need to stay on our game. So I think we don't even have to play them. They could always just be, you're just here, just be a fan, just support the team. You're not going to come on, but these players are. So it could be a mind game thing that we can play with them. But I do think we need to be able to bring a plan B in if needed. Because we've
Yeah.
seen these things go horribly wrong for even better. Like Liverpool, for example, they don't even have anything to bring off the bench. That's why they've been getting knocked out. Otherwise, they might have a chance to get through. But that's me. That's personally me. I'd mix it. But I don't know what you think.
Mhm.
I'm not as confident to
Well,
not do
no,
that.
of course I'm not confident because I looked at that lineup and I just thought it's going to be slow, it's going to be messy. We'll win it, but it won't be a great game. Thank you so much for your super chat, Sasuke. Sasuke says, Chelsea fan here from the Football Terrace. Big up the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. I love it. Thank you. Rival fans are always allowed to come in here, as long as we're not like all disrespectful and all that kind of stuff. We had a moment in time where I felt like the Arsenal fans were feeling a little attacked by the rival fans coming into the chat. And we're all friends here as long as everybody keeps it 100% respectful and doesn't spam the chat with weird things. But yeah, the Nigerian Englishman says strong bench. We have no Europe, so we should have a strong bench. This ain't 5 years ago. These cups are important for a young side. Hopefully, we don't need them though. Exactly. I think that's pretty fair to say. I have a couple more things that I just want to touch on, but there's about 175 of you guys here watching with us. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, get in the chat box, and let me know what you guys are thinking. Colin says the algorithm doing its thing. First time on your channel, just exercise the thumbs up. Right. Thank you so much. You guys, the liking the video, you guys have no idea how important that is to the channel. It really, really helps. When you guys are in the chat, it really, really helps. So if you do like the channel, there are free ways to support it. You don't have to send in super chats if you don't want to, but liking the video is one of the most important things. So if you are liking it, make sure you like the video. And yeah, so there, I guess I just wanted to touch on that COVID situation that, the Premier League has made the decision to go ahead with the festive fixtures, which for me, I think is a good thing in terms of this is kind of like a soft factory type of thing. But for a lot of people that are struggling, football is a big part of their lives and a big way to kind of get your mind off of stress. So in a stressful time where we don't know what people are going through during the holidays, it's nice to have your football still there. But from the other angle of like all the COVID cases, it's rampant. This new variation or variant of the COVID virus is very it's aggressive and it's there. So I think from an ethical standpoint, it doesn't feel the best, but I understand that they don't want to shut down the league again. It's very costly for the Premier League and for the teams and for people that actually work at the clubs as well to lose work at this time. So from every angle, it doesn't seem like there's a win-win-win-win for everybody, but from an Arsenal perspective, you know, and seeing kind of where we are, we're in the top four. We'll be probably in the top four and during Christmas, which hasn't happened in a very long time, which is amazing. But you see, like some of our rivals have games in hand. Spurs were able to draw Liverpool the other day, which was a game that I'd kind of counted on them to lose, but they didn't. But they still have quite a few games in hand. So do United. Where do you think the advantage lies here, with teams? I mean, there's obviously teams that have deeper benches, so having COVID kind of run through their team isn't as devastating as it is for other teams. And then you have teams that have played all their games, teams that haven't played some of their games. Do you think it's more important to have those games and those games in hand that you can kind of play when you get right, or maybe in a better situation? Or do you prefer to have the points on the board? We're in a position where we're ahead, but everybody's calling it false fourth. Does it feel like false fourth to you? Do you think that we really have that spot? And how important do you think it is for those teams that are kind of, who do you think has the advantage? I think that's what I kind of want to know from your perspective, because it feels like United and Spurs fans are really confident that they have games in hand, so it's false fourth. But do we have an advantage here?
To a level, because obviously having points on the table is guaranteed, whereas with games in hand, you don't know. Like, you genuinely don't know. They could be the shock results that derail your season. You could be having games literally 3-4 games a week. You could be in a situation where your squad is literally being tested because of the amount of games that you have in hand. But on the whole, like COVID situation in terms of the league, obviously, it's a hard one, because I feel like the Premier League's done it wrong, in a sense of, when we look at let's just look at the other top 5 leagues, for example, the Bundesliga, Liga on, La Liga and Serie A, for example. They've got just as many games to play. They've got the same sort of issues to deal with in terms of some teams going to Europe, some teams not. But the big underlying difference is 95% or above of their players are double jabbed or vaccinated. And I know the whole vaccination can bring a whole new topic because it should be a personal choice, and I agree with that. But when you're looking at it statistically, those leagues have got double jab players, at least 95% of them, and not a single game has yet to be called off since the restarts have happened. So it does go to show that being vaccinated and being in that situation where you've got your league vaccinated can have a massive impact. As much as I want to sit here and go, it's unfair, it should be stopped, it should be this. At the same time, as an individual, you've also got a duty of care to other people. So you need to balance. As much as people hate being vaccinated, you also need to look at the benefits of it. And maybe there needs to be a not a ban, but just maybe you don't play those players. And at some point, I think this is just in a worldly thing. I don't think this is just football. We need to get on with it because it is obviously such a sad thing to happen. Thousands of deaths per day we were seeing in reports of many people dying per day. But now that's kind of not the case. It's a lot less deaths, and it's become a bit more of it's leveled out with the flu for me. Like, whereas there's going to be a lot of people who get it, but there's a lot of people getting the flu right now as well, and the cold, etc. So it's a hard one. I mean, I would hate to have that job to make a decision like this,
Mhm.
but last time we had a lockdown, thousands and thousands of people across the leagues lost their jobs for different reasons. In Arsenal, for example, reportedly 50 people. That's just 50 staff members, but there was hospitality members. There were people that worked, match days that were either furloughed or made redundant due to obviously. So look, what would you rather? People having a job and being able to celebrate Christmas, which is one of the main reasons why we're saying to cancel the league, or continue playing these games? Those people can come out of Christmas and knowing that they'll still get their wages, they'll still be paid to do their job, and they don't need to have the stresses of not being paid, not having a job. So look, it's such a hard balance, but as long as it's done right, and as long as, let's say, 8 players have COVID cases in a team, or nine, or like 12, 13 players, whatever the number they want to put on it, and they say, okay, those games are going to be cancelled. I think that's the best way to move forward with this. And at some point, as a world, we need to move on from it as well, because if we're constantly putting ourselves in lockdown, the mental strain for a lot of people is also difficult. And then it's the point you made. A lot of people are isolated, and they can't celebrate with their families, whether they're positive COVID tests or whether someone in their families had a positive, so they're having to isolate between themselves, and they've got nothing else to do but to watch football to keep them sane. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm on both sides. If
Well,
they cancel it, cool. If they don't, cool.
it's a difficult one, but I think from an Arsenal perspective, somebody made a really good point that every single time it seems like we get in a groove, something happens, an international break or something like that. So it is good for us for things to continue because we are in decent form. And what this means is that the teams that have games in hand will have to go ahead and play them in the midst of the games that they already have going on. And for me, I think that can it can introduce an advantage for us if they were to slip up, but we can't. I mean, it has to come from us as well. We have to, you know, get our points and beat Norwich and beat Wolves and do those things. But I think we're in a good position. But it's just interesting hearing you're in false fourth because we have these games in hand, and I hear what they're saying, and it probably if I was in their position, I would think the same thing. But they have to we've put pressure on them to have to win them because we won our games. And so if they do slip up, we could be in a really good position. And so I would rather be us than them. But I understand why the Premier League has made this decision. I just hope that we don't go back into games without fans. That is something that's been floated around. There have been reports that the government may force the Premier League to kind of go back into that project restart, no fans in the stands type of thing. And I think that would be so sad to see because, having fans in the stands back has felt like football again. And to go back to that so quickly, it was the back end of last season where we started seeing small groups of fans come back in, so to have that would be detriment. Like it would hurt from the fact that football's not the same without fans. But Then when I think about our home form that's been so, so good, I think I underestimated how important it was for Arsenal to have fans at the Emirates, because you could just tell that it's becoming somewhat of a fortress now. It's becoming somewhere that people don't want to come. And you give a small advantage to those teams that would otherwise pretty much be severe underdogs if they were away from home with fans in the stands. Now it's kind of like if we were to go back to that, it would take that away. But do you worry about that a little bit, that our home form has been so good that if we were to go back into no fans in the stands, that it would take something away from us that we've worked so hard to kind of create this season?
Possibly. I mean, obviously, we've seen a drastic change in home and, to be fair, away forms across the Premier League. I think worst comes to worst, just start doing limited fans in the stadium at a minimum, or maybe just. I know this is going to sound a bit mad, but just ban the away fans, because obviously we know there's hotspots for COVID-19 as well. So traveling from, I don't know, like some people do, like for example, when we play and Norwich, for example, or when we then Man City, for example, there are people traveling 4 hours away, or like a couple of hours away from Manchester to London, and you don't know, those fans could be COVID carriers and they don't know, and that can obviously bring in its own issues because people are traveling from all parts of the country. So that brings its own challenges. So maybe limit the number of fans and have it as home only, so you can't be an away fan or anything like that. And it does obviously bring a detriment because Liverpool suffered from it. We've suffered from not having fans. A lot, like, home games are no longer advantageous to the home side. So it's one of those where hopefully
It
we've
really
we've
affects
become
the big
mentally more,
teams.
yeah, because it's really the tough games, because when you're like things aren't going your way, the fans can really push you on to winning. Like for example, the Norwich games, the Burnley games, the Watford games. For example, the Spurs game, we absolutely battered them because of how much the atmosphere changed. And even when you talk to people about the West Ham game, for example, the people who went to it, and the Southampton game, they said it's some of the best atmospheres they've gone to. So yeah, just like Don one saying, like Villa and Southampton game, the atmospheres were unreal, like from what I've heard. And even when you just watch it on TV, you could see that the levels had raised for those games. Maybe because everyone knows this is probably the last few games they could go this season.
Right.
And, it changes the mentality of the players. And some players thrive under the lights and the fans and, the chants and even the jeers, for example.
Like
So,
Ramsdale is one of them. Like Ramsdale is a huge and personality person, and I wonder about, I really do wonder about that, and I really hope we don't go back into that,
yeah.
because our home form has been so good. And I've seen in the comments that people are kind of saying that it could help us away from home, but I think that you want to make sure that you get the home games and bet on the away games. And I think shaking up our home form would be detrimental to us. So I hope we don't go back to it. The last thing I wanted to touch on was that little tiny report about, and we don't get, I'm reporting the news. I don't know if it's reliable or not, but this is just what's been said. But there's a greater point at the end that I want to get to. But a report had kind of come out that it wasn't Arteta that really wanted to exile like our Aubameyang from the team and not let him train. It was Josh Kroenke that wanted to make that decision. And after the Leeds game, all three of them got together to settle their differences, because Arteta actually wants Aubameyang reintroduced back into the side. Obviously, Aubameyang is subject to so many transfer rumors at the moment about loans to Barcelona, loans to Juventus, teams looking at him, wanting to find a solution for him to go. But I feel like it would be difficult for him to get a transfer during AFCON in January. And I'm not sure if I believe that there's a real market for him at the moment with the wages that he's on. So if you did want to come back into the team, I just wanted to ask you, if Arteta and Josh and Aubameyang decided that the best thing was for him to come back into the side to train and to be a part of the team, what effect do you think that that would have on this group now that they're playing well? Because for me, I don't think they've looked like they've missed him. They don't look like they are disrupted in any way. But if he's brought back in and he's not played, which at this point, with the way that Martinelli's playing, with the way that Lacazette is playing, I just don't see how Aubameyang gets back in playing wise. What effect do you think that that could potentially have? And is that something that they really need to look at? Because the team is playing well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's the big question right now, because without him, we've actually had three of our best consistent performances, um, probably in the era that Arteta's been here, and that speaks volumes in itself. And look, the question that I wanted answered, and I think I've got the answer now, is who's at fault? Is it Aubameyang, or is it whoever made the, well, in this case, whoever's made the decision now? Because whether it's Josh or Arteta, is the club wrong or is Aubameyang wrong? And I think from the players' reactions, I see it as being an Aubameyang fault here now, because I think he has done something, or he's done a series of things that have put him in this position. And the reason why I say that is because if you disagreed, if you were so against the way a player was treated, there would be a drop off in performance. There would be a drop off in passion. But I've seen none of that. Actually, I've seen that level up, which is a bit bizarre to say, because you think it's Aubameyang, Lacazette's your best friend. You know, Saka looks up to you, Martinelli looks up to you. You know, etc., etc. All these young players do, to a level, look up to you, but they haven't cared. That's the issue. Like I'm the thing I'm trying to wrap my head around. They don't look bothered. They don't give a crap the fact that Aubameyang's not there. So I don't think it changes things unless Arteta introduces him into the 11 again, and goes, you know what, Aubameyang, you're my player, so you are going to play, and disrupts that. But if Arteta brings him in, puts him on the bench, and then he has to earn his place, like Martinelli's been doing, like to a level like, Odegaard's had to do as well, because he's also been, dropped a few times. Just like Pepe, for example, if Pepe comes in and he's having to prove himself, then I'll be like, all right, fair enough. I don't mind him being introduced. But if he then becomes a staple first team player, I'll have an issue, because you've clearly not seen how much your system is working without Aubameyang for you to just reintroduce him. And also, I think secondary to that, because we don't really know why he's been dropped or why this has happened, it's very difficult for me to sit here and go, yeah, he should be introduced. Because maybe Josh is right and Arteta's being his stubborn old self and wants to go against what the club is saying, and actually the club's doing what's right for the club. So it's hard, because think about it. For Josh to make a decision, that look, he only comes into the picture when something's not right. Like, for example, when the transfers weren't happening, he turned up and made Ramsdale happen. Then he made what was it? Ramsdale, was it Odegaard, and the final
I
signing that we
forget.
made of the summer as well. I can't remember who, but yeah, I think there was three signings as soon as he came into England and started getting involved in transfers. So I do think he only comes in, or he's in the picture, or his name is touted when there's a big decision to be made and he needs to
Mhm.
make it. So I think something's gone on, and I think I'm backing the club on this one for now, because I don't see any signs of it not being Aubameyang's fault at the moment. So look, he's trying to change the culture. He's talked about, Arteta's talking about a culture change, and so one of them's just taken the initiative and gone, look, we're talking about this culture change and we're not doing it. So if he comes back, earn your spot. If that doesn't happen,
Yeah.
Arteta, I've got serious questions for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing for me was seeing that the team looked like very unfazed by it. But I think introducing somebody back into the locker room could add some issues if they're unhappy, if he's not getting the playing time, if he still feels aggrieved, if he still feels like he was treated wrong, if that's how he feels. So I guess I tend to agree a little bit with that the season is tough and long. And I'm certain that at some point we will need a bombing. In my opinion, you don't forget he's a world class striker, he's lacking confidence and all of that. I do hear that aspect. And when it comes to Pepe and when it comes to Aubameyang, two players that I'm not quite sure we use to the best of their ability, I still feel like if they're there, I want them to be in good spirits. I want them to feel useful. When you're in a team and you have to be there, you have to feel useful. And so I would hope that, because it's going to be important for our top four hopes, or if we want to be in Europe or whatever, that everybody's contributing in a positive way, and I would hate for him to come back in and there to be all this turmoil and stuff. So again, unless somebody comes and gets him in January, I think squash it, you know, reintroduce him back in so that he has to fight for his spot and hope that he's a happy bunny until the end of the season so we don't have any drama. But I don't think you can hold him out in the under 23s and all of that until the end of the season without it becoming a never ending story. So if they've squashed it after the Leeds game, I hope that that's what happens. And, if he does come back in, things work out for us. But at the moment, doesn't look like we need him on the pitch, playing well, scoring goals. So he'll have to actually win a spot back. And Martinelli looks like he's gripping onto that shirt with dear life. So good luck, Aubameyang, getting it off of his back. But let's end it there. Let's end it there. It's interesting. I'm seeing a lot of new faces or a lot of new names in here that I haven't seen before, which lets me know that my tags are working, and all that kind of stuff. The algorithm, as you guys have said, is leading you guys here. So before you go, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend. I do want to answer this question from Glenn really quick. Glenn asks, would you start Aubameyang tomorrow if he was available? Also, well done on the work this year, Jess and Souls. Thank you so much. Immense growth. Can't wait for us to get top 4 in this channel to 100K next year. That would be great. But I would not start him if he was available tomorrow. Would you?
I actually would. Because if the thing is, if he's available, then clearly they've squashed the beef. Like otherwise, you wouldn't bring a player back in. And I don't think that the beef would have been, well, not even beef, but whatever the situation is that serious. If you're willing to bring them back in this quickly, that's the only reason. But and it's a League Cup game. I couldn't care less if you play that under any circumstances. So yeah, I would. Another senior head would, unless he's stropping around, then I'd smack him and tell him no, you're out again. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would, but yeah, you guys make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I will be on Arsenal Vision before the game for a live stream, for like a pre-match live stream before Sunderland. So make sure you guys tune into that. And of course, immediately following the game will be player ratings for the Sunderland match. Hopefully, we are talking about a League Cup win and moving on to the semifinals and not some BS where we flubbed it and we're cussing out Cedric and co for not playing well, but we'll see what happens. But thank you guys so much. Make sure that if you're new to, obviously subscribe, but follow us on Twitter at SheKnowsArsenal. You can also follow me on Twitter at SheKnowsArsenal. I already said that, at It's Justino. That's what I meant. And at Gunnar Souls. That's where you can find him on Twitter. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.